What is happening, everybody? Welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, episode 806, with my guest today, Sensei Nick Taber. I don't know why I keep looking off to the side. I know who I'm about to talk about. My name's Jeremy Lesniak. I'm your host here for the show. I founded Whistlekick because I love traditional martial arts, and that's why we have this show and all the other things that we do. And if you're new, you might say, hey, Jeremy, what are all of the other things that you do? Well, we do events and we do products and we have training programs. We've got a whole bunch of great stuff. And if you go to whistlekick.com, that's where you're going to find all of it. It's all available for there, quite a bit of it for free. But if you find something there that's not free, if you use the code podcast15, it's probably going to save you 15% on it. And I say probably because we have a few things that aren't discountable, but almost everything is. Now, if you like this show, this Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio podcast, the top-rated traditional martial arts podcast in the world, according to many, we have a separate website, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, because we make the names of things simple. And what are you going to find over there? Well, you'll find every single other episode we've ever done, all 806 of them. And actually, there's some bonus episodes, so it's even more. And you will find on the individual pages for each episode, show notes, including a transcript that you can search or copy and read on your Kindle. Photos, videos, links. When we have guests on, we often link to their websites and their social media accounts. Sometimes there are things that we reference in the show that we later download and provide to give you more context. And the short of it is, if you find an episode that you really love, there's a good chance there's something at the Martial Arts Radio website, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com, that will give you more value, more context to whatever the thing is that we talked about on the show. Why do we do what we do? Well, we do it all because we are looking to connect, educate, and entertain the traditional martial artists of the world. Our stated mission as a company is to get everyone in the world to train martial arts for at least 6 months, because I believe that would make the world a much, much better place. And if you resonate with that mission, if that's something that's important to you, there are lots of ways you could help us in our mission. Yeah, you could buy something. You could also tell people about the show. You could join our Patreon. It starts at $2 a month. Do you want to know what episodes are coming up on the show, what guests we're about to have? Join the Patreon for just $2. But if you increase your pledge from there, if you go up to the 5 or the 10 or one of the higher tiers, we actually give you a whole bunch of great stuff, exclusive content you're not going to find anywhere else, bonus merch, all kinds of great stuff. How do we know it's great? Because people don't stop. Once they join the Patreon, they stick around for a while. And if you want the whole list, everything you could do, maybe you're a super fan and you love what we do, go check out the family page, whistlekick.com/family. You got to type it in. There's no button that links you there from anywhere. And what we have over there is all the ways you can help us in support of our mission, as well as some bonus, exclusive, often behind the scenes or discounts, things like that, that we don't put anywhere else. It's like a mini Patreon. Okay. Now, let's talk about today's episode with Sensei Nick Taber. And why am I looking over here? I don't know. I just am. I'm thinking back to my conversation with him, and I had a lot of fun. It was a great conversation, one that I think you're really going to enjoy. And I think what I'm torn with as I'm setting this episode up is not wanting to give too much away. There are things that I could easily say that might discolor your how you take this episode. Not in a bad way, but just I feel like the more that I say, the more likely you're going to take this differently. So I'm not going to say anything else. This is one I'm just going to leave to you and say, enjoy, because I know you will. Sensei Taber, welcome to Martial Arts Radio. How are you?
Wonderful, man. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad to have you here. Audience, we were just chatting, as you might expect, because it usually happens at this point. People in common, right? So we were just chatting about people in common. And, you know, I've got some ideas of where some of this is going to go, and I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I'm just really happy to be here. I mean, it's been a long time since I got to tell my story.
Cool.
I mean, with 33 years in the martial arts, almost to the day, and it's it's kind of thing. Everybody gets into the martial arts, and it's always a weird reason, you know. And you hear the stereotypical,
Yeah.
Stuff like, I was bullied, then I was brought to the dojo. I was, I needed something to do, I was brought to the dojo.
Hmm.
And then, but the ones who fall into it really hard always have the very unique stories.
So what's yours? What's your
Okay.
unique
So,
story? How'd you fall
so
into the
yeah.
dojo?
So my first time when I fell into it, I fell into the martial arts because of the Ninja Turtles. Not
You're
yeah.
not the only one.
Yeah, not because it's like, oh, cool, I like pizza, I want to do this. I my parents wanted me to do something, and
Mm,
they told me, they said, okay, you've got to try something. You can't just sit around the house. You can't just feel sorry for yourself. And I was 6 years old at the time.
mm,
So my dad knew somebody. He worked at a car dealership, and one of his customers, ran the T-ball league.
mm,
And I'm like, okay, we'll do T-ball. Sure. Let's see what happens.
okay.
And I got up, we went to the clubhouse, got the ball, got the bat, got the uniform. And it was first game, and it was one of those where, the kids all got up and everybody got on base. Everybody got to hit the ball.
Yep.
Scores kept. I got up and I stood there, and the ball is on the tee. I stood up, did there. I looked at the umpire. I looked back, and I went, "This makes no sense. Like, this makes no sense." And I'm like, "Okay." And my dad's like, "Do you really want to do this?" I'm like, "No, this is really
Mm,
boring." And there was a friend of his who said, I own friend of his who said, "Hey, my son goes to Tiverton Taekwondo.
mhm.
You might want to check that out." And we drove by on the way to my grandparents' house, and the sensei there had painted the Ninja Turtles on the welcome sign. And it's
Mm.
just not like, it was like little drawings. I mean, he put it on plywood, and it was sticking out like 8 feet high, and it was really big and all that. And I just
That's
remember
cool.
sitting in the back of the car, I saw it, I went, "Dad, I want to do that." You know, and I'm like, "Okay, let's go check it out." And I'm sure you have a similar thing. The first time you walk into the dojo and you can remember the
Mm,
smell, like that smell of just like, I'm like, this is where I belong.
mm,
Then what I found out a little while ago, and then I started to like dig into it, and they're like, okay. And then the sensei, or Gifford, who he looked at me and went, okay, he's got cerebral palsy. I don't know how much he can do.
mm.
And I said, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. But maybe he'll last a little while. Maybe he won't.
Mm.
Lo and
Because
behold, I was the
because
one.
let me I'm going to step on your toes for just a
Sure,
moment because
go
I
ahead.
just want to make sure the audience, if they didn't do the math, right? So we're talking right about 1990.
1990,
So
yes.
we had, you know, classes had really opened up for kids at
Yes.
that point,
Yes.
but it wasn't, I would say, as understood as it is today,
Yeah.
that for those who might have some challenges, that
Yeah.
martial arts can work really well. It was still
Yes.
kind of new territory. Please continue.
No, yes, it was definitely new territory there. What are we going to do? Because a lot of people that I came across at that time, and already within the last year, I was thrown into special needs classes when he doesn't need this. Let's get out of here. Let's do this. Okay, he can do this. He has a brain. He can do things. But I also had a mom who was very, very, very much like, he's going to do whatever the heck he wants, and he's
Mm.
not in a way like, he's going to do whatever he wants. He's my son, but
She fought for you.
he's going to do more. Like, there's a
Yeah.
story I tell in a lot of podcasts where there was a teacher's assistant who said, "Don't expect him to do a lot. He'll get a job, he'll be happy, but don't put too much expectations on him." I was 5 years old. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but it was one of those, like, she sent me out in the hallway
Yeah.
saying, "Go away. We got to have a private conversation." And Miss Mello was one person. She's like, "Don't expect me." And my mom goes, "He'll do whatever the hell he damn well wants."
Yeah.
I don't know if I could cuss here, can I? Or is it this?
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it light, you know.
Like, okay, all right. So, yeah, I apologize, but
No,
yeah.
that's fine.
So as I went through the martial arts, and I started out doing it, there were, I had difficulties at times, and let's not sugarcoat it.
Sure.
I would stand in a fighting stance, but my right arm would go all the way out here.
Yep.
and not knowing what would happen. I'm in tournaments, I'm standing like this,
Mm.
just wide open, and I'm like, hey, let's go fight this guy. Why do you keep hitting me? Like, why do you
Right.
keep hitting me? And I sat there and I trained, and I would sit in the mirror in my bathroom at home, and I would just hold the punches out,
Mm.
hold my fist out, and just be aware of it, where this sort of. And what I would do is I would look in the mirror. It's okay. I need to look like this. I need to, I need to make sure my fists are in the right angle. My hands are right. I'm
Mm.
protecting myself, and then I would shut my eyes.
Mm.
Where's it gonna go for a while and say I would do this. I would do this for 2 hours a day.
Wow. At how old?
I was 8 years. Let's see, I started sparring. I was a yellow belt. I was seven and a half, 8 years old, roughly. And just saying, like, look,
It's a
I'm never,
long. That's a long time for a
yeah,
kid to do anything.
yeah. But the thing is where I was brought up is like, if it's worth doing, I'm enjoying
Mm.
myself. I'm with other kids who are doing it, but I also started, now that I know this now, I started to have an inkling that this was the thing I could fall into.
Mm.
And we had Sensei Eric Gifford was an ex-Marine.
Mm.
So he was one of those dudes like you're gonna get up if you're gonna get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, do everything you've got to do. And if you're here, you better be here. You're not gonna play around.
Mm.
It's not it's a fun place. Like
Mm.
he wasn't like he was, it wasn't like he was just a drill sergeant all the time, but he also said you're gonna learn something. And what I learned from him is just okay, you get there and you kick, you kick, and kids fell out. They fell
Sure.
out, didn't want to do it anymore. I think the statistic I learned when I started getting close to black belts is 100,000 kids, at least at the time, 100,000 children go into martial arts to make black belt. And
Everybody's got a version of that
yeah,
statistic.
yeah.
I don't think anybody's is based on actual research.
Mm.
People can say what happens in their school, right? But there's no
Right. At
data.
least at least how I know it. So kids who have a disability, even smaller
Sure.
than that. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be the first to get a black belt, and when I was like 11, 12 years old is when I realized I'm like, I got something here, and I also have a knack for teaching.
Hmm.
I also have a way to teach it because kids were looking at me, and I still have dudes on Facebook who grew up with me going, dude, I tell my kids about you,
Yeah.
who were there, and they're like, they send me like, okay, how's he here? And they go, oh, dude, this guy can fight. Like, this guy knows what he's gonna do. Oh man, dang.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta pick myself up in order to meet his standards, which I thought were, their standards of me were down here. I'm going up
Right.
here.
Right.
I'm
And
going.
and actually, and I want to ask about that because
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a guess here.
Oh,
You're talking about the the support staff in the schools, and I would imagine it was more than that one person
yeah. Yep.
setting the bar low
Yep.
for you. I'm going to guess that your instructor didn't treat you differently from others, just said
Nope.
you have to do this, you have to find
Nope.
a way, you do what you can do. And I'm going to also guess that tied to the time in the mirror, because here you find this aspect of your life where you believe you can do it because
Yes.
nobody's telling you otherwise, because your mother's telling you can do it,
Yeah.
your instructor's telling you can do it,
Yeah.
and you're determined to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just if you're, I didn't grow up rich either. I had some grandparents who had a lot of money and were able to help out every now and then. And had a very successful business, but they didn't dish out money all the time.
Hmm.
Like, hey, I need this. Okay, okay. Like there are times they kind of spoiled me. I'm the youngest grandkid by 11
Sure.
years.
Okay.
So it all fell to me, but they weren't like, okay, but the aspect was of it, if you're going to be spending money on it, you better make it worth it.
Hmm.
you better get and my mom and dad would go to work, and they would just, okay, I'm going to earn my paycheck. Get up, you go to work, you do
Hmm.
everything, and in order they got a house, they earned that house. They got, so for me it was okay, I'm going to be black belt. I'm going to be black belt, and it's also why I chose to wear this shirt. I'm wearing a Karate Kid shirt today,
Yeah.
but I found out locally the first Karate Kid came out in a local theater the day I was born. And I
Oh, oh, that's fun. I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
I took that as an omen when I read that, and this was early days of the end. I'm like, okay, like, okay, now it's time. Like now it's
Yeah.
time to go full force and see what I can do. And to answer your question about it, yeah, the Sensei Gifford was never a person to change things. The only thing he did do, if he changed something, I remember a psi form
Mhm.
that he created. And the only thing he did was he just mirrored it. So a left defense became a right defense.
Mhm.
Just because the form itself, you would attack more with the right hand than the left.
Mhm.
So
And for those who are listening, I hope you don't mind me pointing this
go right
out.
ahead.
You've got some. There's a
Yeah.
difference between your left and right hands. I can see it
Yes.
when you bring your hands
No,
up. They
it's
don't. They're
it's
not. They're
obvious.
not equal.
Yeah, it's obvious there is. I have cerebral palsy, which I had a stroke in the womb and I was born 9.5 weeks early.
Mm.
I lived my life in the first 2 months I was in an incubation chamber that I was there. So I mean, I tell people, like, when you pull brownies out of the oven and they're a little gooey, but I came out half cooked. You know, I came out half cooked, man. I ain't right, dude. But you know what? So I'm still sweet, still
Yeah,
sweet. I'm a little off, but
it's all good. Hey, you're in good company then.
yeah, I know, right? But and it became with the birth of it, the martial art in the studio, which the studio became Gifford's Academy of Martial Arts,
Mm.
birthed an art called Chas and Do,
Hmm.
which is the way of oneself. Loose translation.
Hmm.
Be the best self you can be and elevate it higher. I'm the one that Sensei Gifford, when he retired, gave it to me.
Mm.
So he said, "You do it. It's you. You're the only one who embodied every little thing, like
Mm.
all of it."
How old were you when that happened?
See, he is nearly 60 now, so I'm 38, so I was like roughly 27 years old.
It's kind of early for
Yeah,
an instructor to say, I'm gonna not that it's early for people to go off and teach, but for
yeah,
someone to just kind of say, here,
yeah.
to grant that to you, to be
Well,
the let's call it the heir to the
yeah.
system.
Well, I was the only one who embodied it, and I was the only one who really just lived in it, and everybody looked at me in the dojo, and when they first met me, they were like, they had an impression of me first
Mhm.
that wasn't 100%, you know. So what happened is like I always tried to push myself, and they'd say, okay, maybe he'll be here for a little while, or he'll go this far. No, he went further.
Mm,
Like the challenge the expectations of that. But at the time, it was on my wedding day where he's like, "It's yours."
mm,
He had some health problems at the time, and he had wrapped up his school, and he also had children. And he said, "You know what?" He's like, "It's enough. I'm done. I'm done.
mm.
Tired. I'm done. It's yours." And I'm like, "Whoa, cool.
You hadn't seen that coming.
Wedding gift, man, right?"
You hadn't seen it coming. You
I
weren't
didn't see it
expecting that.
coming. No, no. I had planned to have my own version of it and call it Chasindo, or and do something, but I didn't expect to have his blessing. That was that, and I put the tenets together and I added to it. So, what I do, especially really push this to everyone, is the tenets of courtesy, self control, indomitable spirit, perseverance, integrity. and I added on honesty and humor.
So the five from
Yeah.
Taekwondo that most people associate with Taekwondo,
Life from
and then
Taekwondo, and
honesty
then,
and
yeah,
humor.
honesty.
And
Yeah, this is the
yeah,
now the seven.
honesty makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I see where you're going there. Some people could lump that under integrity, but
Yes.
it is a bit separate. But
Yeah.
humor is quite different. Talk about that. Tell me why that needed to be on the list.
It had to be on the list because everything in life, when you have somebody like a generalized samurai, right? Now, here's the way I explain to people. You have an enemy who's coming towards you,
Mhm.
full of hate, full of anger, and ready for the attack. If you're looking at it going like, you really want to go against me for this? And you're deflecting their chi that they're tossing towards you, and you're saying it doesn't bother you. And it's not necessarily saying that, you're the person who's gonna get up and knock out an open mic night at the comedy club. That's not what we're looking at. But if you look at it, go, okay, like you're coming at me right now. You have a knife at me, and you really think that this is the best idea? It's my really? Nah, dude, no. And just by simply being able to deflect that chi where they got anger and you're a total zen relax mode, and then saying, okay, then while they're striking with their anger and striking there, they want to be able to strike hard, strike fast. You're able to flow and do the Jeet can do be like water, flow with that. And the other side of it is as a martial artist who has gotten this far, what I realize is when people start to know about me, I automatically get that. I get that title of sensei, but I earn the title of it, and makes me a pillar of the community, like that.
Hmm.
If you have
Sure.
somebody who can take the situation in front of them seriously, you build that garden, you build everything there, but you're still able to smile, joke, and then not take yourself too seriously. I think of like the Mr. Miyagi line, where'd you get your belt, Mr. Miyagi? JC Penney, $3.99, good deal. Like it's like, okay. It hits a little harder. It's a funny line in a movie, but it hits a little harder when you think about it. The belt is for keeping your pants up.
Yeah.
But the reason why you earn that is all the blood, sweat, and tears and everything else that you poured into it. Yeah, that's all there. I'm going to do this. But for me, I'm still that fun guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still that guy who's going to be able to get to know me as a human. And I think when you take yourself too seriously, you start losing a lot.
Mm.
But if you take the situation in front of you seriously, there's an attacker in front of me or something, whether that's a bully, whether that's a horrible boss, or whether that's whoever it may be, whatever it may be, or you dealt with a loss or something, like go with life. But you're still able to do yourself and then move that flow around and still handle it. You take that attacker out, whatever it is.
Yeah. Humor has such a place in martial arts and martial arts training. It's one of my favorite methods of de-escalation. Someone wants to hurt you, tell them a knock-off joke. It's going to be so out of the blue, right? Is it going to work every time? No, but nothing works every time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that as you teach now, humor is kind of important to you. But just the description of your instructor, was humor part of his teaching method?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Oh my God,
Because
yes.
you've painted a picture of a very strong, very strict person,
Yeah.
and I think it could be easy for us to forget that humor can still play in there.
Yeah, it is, Jeremy. I mean, there was one thing that sticks out in my mind is there was a kata that he was teaching us. It was the blue belt form. It was called O. And number 5. And then one of the formations was a down block and an outward block formation. You would switch, and front kick.
Mm-hmm.
Every kid does the exact same thing. You do the wrong block. Yep. So switch, left front kick, kicks the knuckles. So you need a hand right away. And he went to me and I'm like, switch, switch, boom. And I kicked my own knuckles. He's like, don't kick your knuckles, dude. Don't do that. And I'm like, okay, sorry, Sensei. Sorry. Yes, sir. Whoo, whoo, boom. And I do it
You
again.
do it again.
You silly knucklehead. What are you doing, man? Like, and I was doing that. And I laughed. And one of the others that will forever stick with me, how long have you been teaching?
I they put me in front of a class probably at 9 or 10.
9 or 10 years old.
So
Wow. So when you had that opportunity to teach itself, have you ever realized when you're teaching children, anytime they do a running kick or whatever happens, you're already laughing already, dude. So, they do a running kick with kids. Every kid does the same thing. They shut their eyes when they're doing it and run. And and he would say, Sensei Gifford would say this, and he says, "What are you doing, man? You want to see everybody, don't you? But oh no, you got your chi, brother. Let's use your chi and see what happens. It's not Mortal Kombat, Or then he would take us down on the mat. So I remember one time I first began to teach. I was teaching this chiropractor's child, and two children, really, really good kids. They were 5 and 8 years old, roughly. I think I'm a little off. Youngest child does this, and we're in this old house. And I was teaching I taught house to house, and it was the way to help pay the student loans off when I was in college.
nice.
We're teaching running sidekicks. We're running there. I'm doing it. Boom, boom, boom. And, it's a small room, but we had enough room to get it done. No AC, so we're opening up all the windows. Little 5-year-old is getting some height. Like, he is getting height and rolling with it, but shutting his eyes. So I'm like, little dude, come on, man. So he does this run. He runs, does a side kick, shuts his eyes, goes straight out the window. And just playback on this it was like slow motion, just like going back, and I see it happening, and it's like a paper it's like a paper towel commercial. You're like, oh my god. Lands on the grass. It's the first floor, folks, so I mean it's not that much. So he lands on the grass, and he's there, and he opens his eyes, he looks up at us. His older brother and me are like freaking out at the moment. He's there. He goes, "What happened?" And we lost it. We absolutely lost it. So I mean, humor-wise, it was always something to do, because that, you said it right. It's the balancer, it's the de-escalation, it's the diffuser, and it keeps us who we are. It keeps us as the defender, keeps us grounded. We're in that horse stance, we're doing this, and then when people are throwing that heavy chi at us, because something is wrong, we're like, nope. It's that puts our shield up, and our defenses are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back. You said you taught house to house in college or after college.
Yes, I did.
That is an unconventional way, and I mean, maybe I'm imagining things that didn't happen, but I'm imagining you going door to door and knocking the same way that a lot of people roughly our age were selling Cutco knives. Do you want to see some knives? Do you want to learn martial arts? Is that what you were doing?
No, I got very lucky, and I mean I taught house to house, but I taught privately, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. Matter of fact, I was deep in debt. So I needed
college.
College, yeah. I needed to earn money, and I needed to pay for books, I needed to pay for food, I needed to pay for fuel. But I wanted to keep the the overhead as low as I possibly could. So you're buying uniforms, buying belts, buying pads, and all that. Like, that stuff adds up real fast.
Sure.
And it's not like Amazon where you can get a bundle deal or anything like that. So what you need to do What I needed to do is I needed to go like it was like I think like a 30-mile trip, 30-40 mile trip every day.
Mhm.
But we had to not every day, but it was like every month or so to
Mhm.
get supplies, and buy weaponry. But I just met people and they said, "Hey, can you teach my kids?" I said,
Hmm.
"Hey, I'll do 2 lessons free, see how they like it, see how your house is good." And it built up. It built up, and I had enough people. I mean, I was able to pay my bills and help sort of. I mean, I was paying for gas at some points, and I mean, there were points where I was able to pay down the balance
Mhm.
a lot and do what I had to do. You know,
Most people have not had the experience of teaching in someone else's home. Maybe, you
yeah,
practice on your own. Maybe
yep,
you have a small training
yeah.
space in your basement and you invite people over. Maybe you're training them formally, maybe you're not. What was different, or what is different about going to somebody else's home and teaching them there?
Oh man, the big difference is you don't have control over your environment
Mm.
at all. So, I mean, if you have your own dojo, I mean, at least it's set up, there's space, the carpet is clean, which is a big, big, big deal. Um, and you really have to work around the space that they give.
Sure.
If they're, I taught in one house that was projects,
Mhm.
and it was a very, very small place, and then they ended up buying a giant sectional, and it took up most of it. And I'm like, all right, let's go outside.
Yeah.
We're good, and you really got to be versatile and say, okay, what do I do?
Mm.
What do I do? That's a big problem. That's a really big problem. The other thing is, kind of under, control of the environment is it's especially with kids, it's really hard to get them. The biggest challenge was getting the focus
Sure.
because their bedroom is right there. Their stuff is right there, but no, you're under me now. I am sensei.
Mm.
Yeah, but you're in my house. Like, no,
Right.
this is
Right.
the
The
dojo floor. No, this is my floor.
the power
Like,
dynamics a little different.
the
And
dynamics are
yeah.
different, and I think like the bigger challenge, the which was it was a challenge, but yet it was a support when you're teaching kids. The parents can help a lot quicker.
Mm.
They're right there. Yeah, I brought them into I brought them into the house. I can help. I can. They're willing to do it because I met them halfway.
Mm.
That time, it was the first time gasoline went crazy high. So like they don't have to travel to me, I come to them.
Mhm.
And they're like, okay, cool. Like, and there was a big partnership with that. I miss that. But right now I teach out of a gym right now, that, they're gracious enough to loan me space, and all I have to do is pay a percentage of my earnings,
Great.
which is stupendous, which is
Great.
great.
Yeah. That's a
You know,
sweetheart deal.
which is great. And it kind of prepares me for now because like when the pandemic happened, I had 42 students,
Mm.
and that was February 2020, dude. Hey, it's going great. Boom.
And then March, you did not have 42 students.
I had none. Like, I had none. And then it was okay, let's see what we can do. Let's go virtual.
Mhm.
And day and age of YouTube and Zoom, and even like how we're doing this, just became okay, what can I do to at least get my message out there?
Right.
But it made me ready for it, and I felt pretty good about that.
Good. Good. So let's talk about now. Let's start to thread some of this stuff together.
Yeah,
Your experience
I am.
as a person, or your experience, you are experienced, but
Yep.
your experience as a person,
Mhm.
um, you're built a little differently
Yes,
than
I
most
am.
of us. Doesn't sound like it's stopped you from doing anything you wanted to do, but it
Yep.
has given you a different relationship to the
Yeah.
martial arts.
Mhm.
And I imagine that has adjusted your philosophy, not only for your own training, but the way you teach and your expectations of the students that you have. Would you speak
Yeah.
to that?
It does change it, but also I understand where they are more than I think others are. I've
Okay.
known a lot of teachers in my life who are like they conform to me. You know,
Mm.
I do this, and then I realize they have a very short career.
Hmm.
No, they come in, they do my thing. I set this, I do the thing, and if they don't do it, they can leave. I'll get new students. Like, no, that doesn't work that way. And I mean, with the chus and do is meant to be able to show people what the system is and build their best themselves, build their best selves and improve based on their own standards. Now, that doesn't mean if somebody starts as a white belt, because they improve a little bit, I'm going to hand over the yellow belt. They have to earn
Mm.
that. But it's if they I had, somebody who had very, very high anxiety. He's on a load of pills and stuff, and he was told every day, since he was very little, oh, just take this medication, it'll bring it down. And the first thing I teach with everybody is how to properly punch.
Mm.
And he's 40 years old, dude, and he's like, I've never punched before.
Mm.
Like, dude, don't worry, we're gonna go through it. And I spent the hour just simply getting him to throw the fist from the hip to, out and then do that. Okay, don't lock your elbow and do that. He's like, okay. But the problem was he didn't learn this. He has trouble breathing. He's
Mm.
exhausted at the end. It's like, okay, I'm like, okay, breathe in when it's at your hip, breathe out, whoo, and and then do that. And that took the time to be able to do it. He became awesome. At the end, he got a very big knack. He had some health issues. He's been on pause for about a year, roughly. At the time of recording this. So I mean, he'll be coming back, I think.
Hmm.
But he started to learn something slowly and reduce his medication.
What
You
I'm
know,
hearing though is you met him where he was at.
I did.
That
Yeah,
you
I did
you
because
instead of I
yeah,
need to check the box of teaching you how to punch.
yeah,
For a lot of schools, what's
right.
class one? It's low
Yeah,
block, it's punch, it's front
yep,
kick, right?
yeah,
You weren't doesn't sound like you were concerned with checking the boxes of what material
no,
needed to be covered in that first hour. You were
yeah,
concerned with the person in front of you
yeah.
and how, with all the tools you had, you
Yeah.
could best help him.
Yeah, I got to get him in, and I got to make sure they do that. And one of the guys who I learned from a while back, and you may know this name if I say Shion Larry Sullivan.
I
Does
know
that-
the name. I don't know
Oh,
him.
he taught me one thing, and he said, before you get them to care about what you're doing, you have to show you care about them. And if you do that, then you're golden. Like you got something to teach. And one of my buddies who is in order to administer taught me the same deal. And he's like, dude, you teach those tenets, but you have to show you have to show that how you live those tenets first,
Mm.
and then where they could fit in or like where they could improve. Like if you have somebody who, they're coming in, they're kicking, they're punching, they're doing okay, they got the basics down, but they can't, they have trouble breathing, they're asthmatic, or their diet is extremely poor and or they're really overweight and they're missing classes and they're constantly late. Like you got to attack their integrity
Mhm.
by really elevating their honesty and say, and I don't mean, putting them down or
Sure,
anything, but
sure.
like, say, okay, look, I mean, you got to tell me what's going on. You got to do that. And if they don't see a road to improvement, they're not going to do very well. The goal is with what I've learned in years of martial arts, is not to necessarily bring out a fighter, but it's to bring out the person when they go into it and how much better they're going to be in the end.
Mm.
No matter where the end is. I mean, I've had kids, I had one person who, well, I was like weeks away from a black belt ceremony, like inches close. And he he had a death in the family, had to get a job, he had to wrap it up,
Mm,
and it was heartbreaking. Like I was
mm,
depressed for almost a year,
mm.
his own accord, because he really just like he wanted it. Like he was
Yeah.
really doing it. And wherever the journey is, it's like you want to see them do better. And I always tell them, I don't want you to be able to go toe to toe with me. To be able to be a version of myself in you. I want you to be better, a better version of yourself than even I thought you could.
Mm,
And I tell the story of like what my own personal belief is. I and it's not to get too religious, but I believe like, we're all built and we're on this earth for a reason.
mm,
So when you die, you go to heaven and you sit down with God, being the universe or whatever. They look at a chart, they look at everything, okay, I built you to do XYZ. Wherever it is, they do that. Wait a minute. They're looking at it, they go, wait, you did that. Yeah, you did that here, you did that here, but you did all this too.
mm.
Like,
In accounting,
I
essentially.
thought you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You outdid that. And if I can get somebody to outgrow themselves
Mm.
and being a better, like, then it's a check off for me in my own head, but it's a check off for them because they improve themselves. And that's what the
Yeah.
system of Chastando is built to do.
Mm. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Why one-on-one teaching, or why private instruction and not group instruction? Because
Group,
one could make the argument that you could potentially reach more people
yes, group
in the same time.
instruction is a very good thing. As of right now, with the ebbs and flows of life, sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
It's just that's it. It just doesn't happen. But with the people who I've come across right now, at least in the past 10 years, have really just benefited from that.
Mhm.
And then we just, we proceed with it and then build up from there.
Sure.
And build up from there. I mean, I have nothing against group instruction. I've done group instruction. I've done one-on-one. It's just the way things have gravitated.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all.
Makes
That's
sense. Yeah. One of the things that I love about martial arts is that
yeah.
it's presented in so many different ways by so many different people.
Yeah.
And that creates a lot of opportunity for people to find a way that works for them. I'm sure a lot of your students wouldn't succeed
No.
in a group setting. And
No.
there are others
Yeah.
who do succeed in a group setting that
Yeah.
might not do one-on-one. Right.
No.
And so the beauty is that both are available. There's uh, more and more people are starting to teach the way that you are teaching.
Yeah.
There are a lot of advantages there.
I agree with you. And I mean, it really is, as we said, building up to and building the right person.
Hmm.
Building up for what they need to do. They got into it for a reason, whether it's something to do or their dad put them into it, or their mom or dad or whoever put them up to it. Um I I mean, one of the greatest things I ever got to do is when my goddaughter called me and said, "Can I learn from you?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, whoa. Like, now, and I told her dad, and he's like, yeah, we can do this. This will be a good thing, and this will be fun. And, I started to teach her. And, I had tears in my eyes. Like, how long have you been preparing for this? I said, the
Hmm.
second she was born.
Hmm.
The
I
second
love
she
it.
was born, I wanted to do this. And, like, I have like the great memories of that. And I mean, like, like children, they ebb and flow. But she got involved in a few other things. So she went on pause for a little bit, but like is itching to come back. And the family has some financial problems right now. So they're like, okay, we want to come back, we want to do more. Let's do this. I'm like, let's go. Let's
You're
go.
ready.
Quack,
You're
quack, quack,
ready.
quack. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. Like, let's go. Like, but yeah, man. And I think back to the point of it, like I really aim for it, and I really, really, really hope, I sometimes, when you meet somebody who's been teaching, especially who's been teaching quite a while, there's a Kempo school in the town next door from where I am, USA Karate. It was run by a great guy, Sensei Shan, and he like just rocks it. Like
Mm.
everything he's been doing it, but every time I meet up with him, I'm like, "Hey, old dog, how you doing?" Like, yeah, it's a good old dog. How you doing, man? I'm good. Like, and then we kind of feel like it's like, wow. I'm like, dude, like, like we've been in the business. And I'm like, dude, I've been in the business 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And you say that and you think of all that's happened since the Ninja Turtles to now. And, everybody asked me the one question is like, Daniel LaRusso or Johnny Lawrence, where do you sit? And I'm like, dude, I could see both.
Mm.
I could see both, but man, I'm liking Johnny Lawrence right now, dude. like, oh yeah, man, come on, you're copping out. I'm like, no, dude. Like you could kind of see both.
Mm.
Yeah,
I agree. When you're a kid, it's
yeah,
pretty, when you have a very black and white view of the world. Yeah,
yeah,
it's one movie, but when you're an adult, you watch
yeah,
that movie again,
yeah.
you're willing to watch with an open mind, you can see it's a lot more gray. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's why it stood up as long as it has.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, dude,
Mm.
especially now, even with Cobra Kai.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Now we were talking before we started recording.
Yeah.
You're a podcaster as well, which is probably
Yes.
why you're so comfortable and
Yeah.
why your audio sounds good.
Yeah.
Not everybody who comes on has great gear or anything, but how'd you get into that?
Okay, so I was invited onto a podcast with a friend of mine called the Blockbuster Dropout Show. And Blockbuster Dropouts was just was two guys, two brothers, and a couple of friends who were former Blockbuster employees. It's okay, let's just talk and
I was a
talk
Blockbuster
movies.
employee, and I
Yeah,
can't
talk
get
about
my
movies.
employee number out of my head. It's been
Really?
20 years. It won't leave. 295-207-4729.
Whoa! What? Wow! Wow,
I
man.
want it gone. Anybody out
Yeah.
there has advice for how to get that out so I can put something else in? Let me know.
I can
Please
still
continue.
remember my junior high school gym locker combination after all
Yeah,
these.
there's no
Anyway, I
need for
don't know
that.
why there's nothing for it.
Yeah.
But why I can remember 26-4-4-14. Like why that why? Like why could that happen? Was it the scene of one of my first fights? Probably. I can't remember, but it was something. As a podcaster, so I got invited to it, and I was started to review movies, and we just started chatting, like, and I was just super comfortable talking and just kind of enjoying myself. And the owner of the studio was there, and he said, hey, dude, you could probably do one yourself. And my grandmother, who we lost last year,
Sorry.
um, that's quite okay. She made it to 96 years old, bro. Like it was,
Wow, that's
yeah.
awesome.
She
We
lived a
should all be so lucky.
yeah, right. She lived a very, very good life. And, she told me, it's like, like, I'm like, maybe I can do this. And she's like, go for it.
Mm.
Go do it anyway. Go ahead. Um, and I remember this, as I was telling the story, she's like, oh, talk about old movies. Don't talk about the movies, the crap that's out right now. I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And we started to do movie theater time machine,
Mm.
which is one of the first podcasts. And, she was listening. She liked it. But when I say talk about the good movies, and she said, you've done so many things in your life. You're the first person in Massachusetts to make black belt with a disability. You hold the record for breaking cement in Massachusetts. I have 9 inches of cement with a palm heel.
Well,
Done it once.
it's a
Just for the
lot.
done it once. Probably never do it again. But it's done. But and other things like you've done so much. Like why not try it? And, like
Mm.
what's it gonna hurt? And I fell in love with the idea. Of just hey, I can do something. We could edit a podcast and a show together, get it out there, and the birth for that became. Then it came Real Talk with Sensei Nick, and it was a couple of students that asked me, why don't you do a show?
Mm.
Like an old friends who said, dude, you were it was a friend of mine who was on one of my episodes. We talked about the tenet of honesty when I started to formulate it. Buddy Adam of mine, and he's like, growing up, dude, you were this figure. Like you were, and I put myself on a pedestal a little bit when I'm saying that, but I really don't. I just want to clarify that. It's like you always knew what you wanted to do. You
Mm.
always put yourself in a good position. It's like you've got to tell your story because
Mm.
people are gonna want to know about it. And I went, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like you're right. And that became the birth of it and became, the bonsai tree obsession and which birthed from that. I have one actually right here.
Oh, nice.
I just tried to
Oh,
try.
yeah, I see it now.
But to show that it's like you do that, like they need to see those. They need to, like, even if you do like a 10-minute episode, you do it Monday through Friday. They wake up in the morning, they hear that episode, they get pumped up. And I'm like, dude, that's a good idea. And
Totally.
him knowing me always said something is like, I bet you can't do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll but it's like it got that little switch in my heart with like Marty McFly and Back to the Future. Nobody calls me chicken.
Yeah.
Like I bet you can't do it. I'm like, okay, that's why I became black belt. That's why, because people thought I couldn't do it,
Mm.
and people, determination is okay. I'll do this, and with real talk, I mean, we do about 10 to 15 episodes a year.
Mhm.
They come out, it's shorter space seasons. Movie theater time machine we've done all the time. And the other one, powering past abilities, I got involved with a friend of mine, and he's wheelchair bound, but he's started working in judo. And he asked me, he's like, dude, maybe we can just turn the camera on, go live, and just talk, and maybe that'll help. I'm like, all right,
Cool.
let's do it. And then that all became it's just something that, I guess it's kind of like, the same way of why I started in the martial arts in the first place, thinking of like, hey, oh my God, I gotta do Ninja Turtles, I gotta do that. And then, it just became, what, I'm gonna try and do it and just be good,
Mm.
and just try to be good and do better because my inner, like everything with the martial arts, like you pick up something and it affects it. Like any sport, it bleeds into everything. Like if you get into the ring with somebody who is two belts above you and twice your size and is looking down on you with that real big death grip, and I'm just remembering when I put myself in that stance, for 2 hours, just remember, okay, let's do it. Okay, good, good, good. But then going, okay, you know what? This is kind of like a movie. Like
Mhm.
this is kind of like a movie, or this is something. And even though I tell myself when you're like, you do a hard thing every day, like, okay, oh man, like a way that it does bleed into it is like if you got to do the dishes. Like nobody likes doing dishes. No, in general. Nobody likes doing that.
I
Nobody
know I know a couple weirdos, but your point is taken. I don't like doing dishes.
yeah,
I don't even
nobody
like using the dishwasher.
No, nobody likes doing dishes or something. I had a job as a dishwasher when I was in high school. I mean, it's still one of those like, I don't want to do this. I need to do more. I need to do this. I need to do something else. But I make that point because nobody wants to do it. However, nobody wants to get punched in the face. So what do you learn? What do you learn first? You don't want to get punched in the face. You learn how to block. You learn how to block. You learn how to dodge. You learn how to get it, but you learn how to counter as well.
Mhm.
So, like, you get that thought in your head, oh, God, I got to go do dishes. Ah, like, what the heck? Okay, so counter the thought, do that. What's the attack? You get those things done.
Mm.
Turn the water, get the soap, get going. Okay, good. Get it out of the way and get it out of the way. And get it out of the way and then enjoy the good stuff later.
Right.
And get that done. And I mean, that's back to another point. Like, that's why with humor, comes into place is one of the lesson I teach is eating the beets is what I always call it. So like a little kid, nobody likes to eat the vegetables.
Hmm.
You eat the meat, you eat the potatoes, okay, the veggies. Like, do I have to? Do I do that? No, eat the beets first and eat those. Get the hard stuff out of the way and enjoy the garden later. Enjoy everything else later on. Because it teaches you, and I mean, as a lesson for that, it's like, okay, you're gonna have people coming at you in life, or people who just don't like you, or people who want to be able to get your job, or people who want to do other things. But you've had people coming at you already. Or if people coming at you there, it's okay. So what do? Mentally just block that out, counter that, go do something and do my own thing.
Hmm.
Be the best self I can be. And when you're your best self, and when you do, that's when you reach peak. And when you reach peak, that's when, okay, you don't do this. Okay, maybe you don't have a black belt around your waist, but kind of feel that way. Feel that way
Right
because it
on.
affects all the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And maybe it's not the physical stuff, but all the other things, and whether you're a salesperson or whether you're trying to do that, and then those principles apply everywhere. Don't you find that to be true?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Completely agree.
dig. Yeah, dig.
How can people find those shows, or how can people find any of this stuff for you? Let's get it all out there for folks.
Okay. So you can find me. The best one is on Instagram. You can use Nick Taber Fitness. Right now, that's the best way. I'm working on a new website that's going to have everything. I'm also a licensed personal trainer as well, so I utilize both worlds.
Mhm.
New website I'm coming up with, taberfitness.com. That's going to have all those links and everything. Real Talk with Sensei Nick is on every podcast platform, so just look it up. Just look it up and you can find me. But the best one right now is Instagram, Nick Taber Fitness. You could find me and, DM me, talk, chat, or whatever you'd want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad you came on. I've had a
I
lot of
am
fun talking
really,
to you.
really, really glad to
Yeah.
be here too,
Yeah.
man.
This has been
Really
great.
glad to be here.
And so this is where you get to close up. How do you want to leave it? What words do you want to give to the audience today?
I just want to say thank you to Jeremy and Andrew for inviting me. This is really good. I think I want to say thank you to Sensei Eric Gifford for believing in me. I might get choked up a little bit, but he believed in me first when no one else would, and taught me how to believe in myself. Thanks to my mom and dad who didn't let me sit down and just say no. And just say, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to get hung up in. And I want to say thank you to Miss Mello, who didn't believe in me at first when I was 5 years old. And for anyone who would come up to me and want to learn, and if you ever get into the martial arts, I just want to say, give it a chance. Give it a chance because, like anything in life, if you're better than you were when you walked into it, the better you're going to be in the long run. And that's coming from a long old dog sensei like me, man. You know, like me, it's really the best thing in the world. And also, it's not what it is in the movies. You can't do it in a 4 month crash course, bro. Like it's going to take time, but you'll get there. And I just want to plug myself again. Nick Taber Fitness, Instagram. I'm happy to be here, and DM me whatever questions you have. You can find me on Facebook, Nick Anthony Taber. I'll be happy to join you virtually wherever. And thank you very much for having me, man.
So now that you've watched or listened to this episode, my intro probably makes a little more sense. The idea that I wasn't quite sure how to set this up because Nick was awesome. And we went in so many different directions. But the powerful elements of his story are the ones where he said things, where he talked about his experiences. Where, for me, talking about finding someone in training that believed in him and how that changed everything. And I think we've all been on the downside of someone not believing in us. And I think we've all had someone come after that did believe us in us, and how powerful that can be. And I'm just thankful that I got to talk to him. Sensei Nick, thanks for coming on. Had a lot of fun and look forward to coming on your show. That'll be a good time too. Hey, audience, you love what we do? Help us out. Buy something, share something, tell people about something, leave a review on something, join the Patreon, or here are two other things you can consider doing. You can bring me out for a seminar. I love doing seminars. And how do you get started with that? Email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. You know what else you can do if you email me? We can talk about me helping your martial arts school. I offer consulting. We as Whistlekick offer consulting. We take the same team that does a lot of the great stuff for us here, and we just jump in and grow your school. Students, revenue, profit, culture. What is your school missing to be the best martial arts school you could ever imagine? Let's help you get there. We can help you, and far more affordably than you may realize. So let's have a conversation. No obligation. Okay. Once again, my email address, jeremy@whistlekick.com. Our social media, everywhere you can think of, is @whistlekick. We've got a great newsletter you can sign up for at pretty much any of our websites. And I think that takes us to the end. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.